Alright guys, welcome back to another video. So, right off the gate, I just want to tell you that I'm not going to get to do any fishing videos for a while. So, if you take a look here, yeah, so basically they just put that out last night and it goes into effect today. Today through April 8th, all fishing is closed for my state. I live in Washington and all of our fishing is closed for the next 2 weeks. So it really sucks because fishing is my life and I fish at least 2 or 3 times a week usually. And so now not being able to fish for 2 weeks, don't really know what I'm going to do. It's going to be kind of a pain, but I'm going to try to do a few videos like this, to the camera and see if we can make some kind of videos, like this, which I don't really like doing, and I know that people don't really like watching these as much as, actual fishing videos, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So, today, I'm gonna talk about fishing swim baits. And, not, your little tiny Kitech swim baits, people throwing jig heads and fish around. No, I'm talking about, your big swim baits. Big 8-inch, 9-inch, 10-inch, giant big swim baits. This one here is a Huddleston 8-inch. This is an S-Waver 168, which is, get that out of here, that's a small bait. No, this bait is actually, it catches fish. Most of my swim baits are at my sister's house right now, just because that's where she lives, right next to the lake that I swim bait fish at a lot. And I basically just walk from her house to that lake, so all my big swim bait gear is there, except for a few baits that I still have in my house here. So big swim baits, this time of year right here can be an absolute, depending on where you're at, can be absolutely, the best time to fish a big swim bait. Now for me, I'm kind of getting into the pre-spawn, and this whole thing not being able to fish kind of screwed me over, but kind of didn't, because right after this, that said what it go till April 8th. Right around then is where the pre-spawn's really going to start picking up around here, where I'm really going to be starting to throw these swim baits. And so hopefully it doesn't go any longer than that. But these fish right now, for me, they're just starting to move up. They're just starting to get, up shallow, just starting to get ready. They're still not going to spawn. These fish don't spawn until about May, so we still got, another month or so before they spawn. A little over a month before they actually spawn, but they still move up shallow. They work their way up shallow, and they're cruising around a lot of times on the bright sunny days. They get up, they suspend. A lot of fish around here in my lakes, they suspend right on the surface on the bright sunny days, get in the sunlight, getting warm, and they start feeding. They start looking to feed, get ready for the spawn. And so these fish that have been hunkered down all winter, and maybe they've eaten, a few fish, some bigger fish. You talk about Huddleston fishing in the winter, creeping that out along the bottom, looks like a dying trout. And these big females that are, the big fish that are sitting on the bottom, you creep a Huddleston by it, they may eat it. So these fish still are eating a big meal, but they're not eating nearly as much, right? The water's cold, the metabolism's cold, or the metabolism's slow. So now the water's warming up, they're starting to get a little more active, their metabolism is speeding up, so they need to eat a little bit more. And this is a great time to throw big baits, because they're looking to eat something big, something to get, a lot of calories in them. So they have a lot of energy, right? And so around here we have a lot of trout-stocked lakes. And this lake that I fish swim baits at, that my sister lives by, I was talking about, they stock a lot of trout in this lake. And it took me a while to discover, it wasn't until I started throwing swim baits that I discovered that the fish in there were trout eaters. Because there's always bluegill and stuff up shallow. So for years I went around throwing bluegill style baits up shallow, and I'd maybe get a 12-incher here and there. Until I started throwing big swim baits, and I realized, oh my gosh, this big trout presentation, they're just killing it. They're chasing it all across the whole lake. And so I found out, just by throwing swim baits, that they want a big trout, that they eat trout. And so there's a lot of lakes like that, where these fish, they eat trout, or it doesn't have to be trout. Maybe you live somewhere where there's not trout, but they eat big shiners, they eat big shad. There's another lake another place I'm going to fish. I really want to fish it a lot. I haven't fished it for a couple of years, honestly, but this year I really want to fish it a few more times, and they eat a lot of big shad out there, so a bigger shad swim bait would work really good. But when you've got fish that, that are eating big bait fish around, whether, like I said, shad, shiners, hitch, trout, whatever it may be. Swim baits, they work super, super good for those fish. Those fish that are eating bigger meals, especially this time of year, they're coming out of their winter, their winter mode, and they're starting to feed up. And a big, slow meal in the spring like this, the water is still cold. It's warming up, but it's still cold. These fish aren't gonna just, shoot across the lake and hit top water. The water is still cold. Although I the other day, if you guys watched that video, I did get one to hit top water, and it can be done. But they're not going to be super crazy aggressive, and but the fish, everything's warming up. These fish are starting to feed. So let's get on with this. So anyway, so I start throwing these big swim baits around, and with these big swim baits, they've got a ton of drawing power, and the bigger the swim bait, the bigger the drawing power. And you can learn a lot just by going around, spending one day, taking one day, like me, I fish a bunch of times a week, like I said, so it doesn't really hurt to take one day just to throw a big swim bait and see what happens. That's what I did, and that's, how I ended up finding out they eat trout in this lake, and it works really good. Or you may go take the whole day and throw a big swim bait and find out it's not for you, The problem with that is that swim baits are so expensive, and the rods to throw them can be expensive, and so you have to have dedicated gear. So it's not like you can just go buy a $5 bait, go throw it on your medium heavy that you have in your garage, and find out if you like it. Because the baits are more expensive, they're giant, the rods and reels, you gotta have dedicated gear to throw this giant stuff. So that's where it's hard to get into this. For me, like I said, I had no idea. At one point I thought, oh crap, what did I just do? I just wasted a ton of money, because I was doing spent a couple $100 on swim baits, spend a couple $100 on a swim bait rod and reel, which I still need a good reel right now actually. So it's like, at one point I was like, what did I just do? Did I just waste all my money? And you got to remember that every lake that you go to is different, because one of my home lakes that I love fishing, it's a dirty, shallow water lake, and so I tried to throw a swim bait there, and it was not working good. I mean, I'm sure if I threw it long enough, I could probably get a big one to bite. If I fished it if I went when the water was the cleanest, if I waited till the water got the cleanest I could probably get a bite. But the water most of the time is pretty dingy, like I said, pretty shallow, a lot of lily pads, a lot of structure. It's really almost a Florida lake, I would say. I live in Washington, like I said, but it's more of like that Florida style, shallow, grassy, lily pads, just that dirty Florida, more water, and so you got a flip, you got a frog, which is, I love doing, don't get me wrong. It's not really a swim bait lake, and I tried to throw swim baits there, and it was horrible. I threw a 6-inch Huddleston, a 68, on a perch color, because they do stock trout, but the fish, they eat bluegill, they eat crappie, they eat perch, up shallow. So, but I threw a 68 perch reedless Huddleston around, and I threw it all day long, and I was throwing it through some lily pads, and I had a couple hits. But I didn't get them to stick. Had a couple of their smaller, 2-pounders. And I fished it all day long. And then we went and this day and we fished docks. And I could skip these Huddlestons. They skip really well. A lot of these big swim baits, especially the big soft swim baits, they skip super well if you throw them on the right gear. If you throw them on a big enough rod, big swim bait rod, you can skip them pretty well. So I was throwing it, skipped it way up under the dock. I'd been throwing it all day long, and I was literally shaking just because you gotta, these Huddlestons are made to go slow, and I was just kind of reeling them along the bottom, dragging them out by these docks. So I was going super slow, and I was kind of shaking, I can't do this anymore. And finally, I felt a dunk dunk, and swung on it. And it wasn't a big fish. It was on the Huddleston 68, the smaller bait, 6-inch bait. It was like a 3-pounder though, and that just made my day. I was like, yes, I threw the Huddleston all day long. Finally got a bite. It's a 3-pounder. It's not a 1-pounder. Or a 2-pounder, it's a 3-pounder. It's not a 6-pounder, but it's a fish, right? And so I was like, yes. And I kind of learned, yes, in that lake it can be done. Yes, in dirty, warm water, where there's a lot of vegetation, it can be done. You can catch them on these swim baits. but it's not ideal. So then I was like, okay, what did I do? Did I just waste all my money? Because I'm not going to go do that again. I'm not going to go grind all day to catch a 3-pounder. Like, you know, with my brother, honestly, in one of the same days took all day to throw big swim baits, my brother caught this is all on video too. It was one of my videos last year, like a spring fishing video. My brother caught 4.5 on a crankbait, a 5.5 or 5 something on a frog, and then a couple like nice 2 and 3 pounders on a frog. While I was sitting there grinding out the swim bait, and that day I didn't even catch anything on a swim bait. The day that happened, and so I literally threw in there with I think I had a glide bait on, threw in there, or maybe it was a Huddleston. I was switching back and forth, but I threw right up in this little rock point, because this does have a little bit of shallow rock on it, and that's where we crankbait fish. But threw it up there, went through there, nothing. He goes up there with a crankbait, whack, 4.5 pounder, and I'm like, really? Like, the swim bait is supposed to catch like the decent size, and it wasn't a big swim bait. It was like the HUD 68, and because the HUD 68 and the S-Raver 168, you know, more 6-inch style baits, and so. Because with swim baits, the bigger you go, the more drawing power and the bigger the fish, but you're going to get less bites. The bigger you go, you know, like say the 6-inch size here, I can catch anything from a 1-pounder to, I mean, the biggest I've had chase this thing around is about a 6-7 pounder. Okay, so say 1-pounder to like a 7-pounder. Okay, then you pick up something like this, and you know, a 1-pounder, sure, you can catch a 1-pounder on this, but the majority of your fish are going to be, you know, between 5 pounds and up on this. 5 pounds and up, and in this, like, kind of 7 pounds and under, right? So you're targeting kind of different fish. They kind of overlap each other a little bit, but so I was throwing the smaller one because I was like, well, I still want to get bit. I don't want to just, like, throw a big one all day. I just want to see if they're by a swim bait. So anyway, I learned that they didn't, and I was like, what did I do? I just ordered even more of these, like, I screwed myself over. So then I went to that lake, that was a clear lake, had a lot of trout stocking, and realized that they eat trout in there, so they were just munching these swim baits. And so that's kind of really when I started, you know, throwing the swim baits around in this lake. So some lakes, what I'm saying to that, some lakes are different. You're going to go to one lake and they could kill the swim bait. You're going to go to the next lake and they could not even look at it. You know, they don't even care for it. And that's just what's going to happen. But I guarantee you, if you go to a lake where they are interested, you're going to know right away. You're going to get up there and you're going to fire up these swim baits around. You can spend a day throwing them. And at the end of the day, you're going to know whether it's a swim bait lake or not. Because you're going to either get fish, you know, big fish to follow it, or you're not going to see anything. And I know the kind of the two things that's going to happen. Now, if you go out there the first day and you don't see anything, but you really want to, you know, swim bait fish, you bought this. If you went out and bought stuff for it, and then you went out there and you're like, oh crap, I didn't get any followers, like I said, switch up lakes. Or maybe try it again. Maybe that day they just weren't. But most of the time, if you go like pre-spawn, especially pre-spawn around here, through the spawn, if I were to go throw a big swim bait around on one lake, I'd know for a fact they'd get a bunch of followers. If I went and threw it on another lake, I know for a fact I wouldn't probably get anything. So switch it up, you know, switch up your lakes, and some lakes they like it, some lakes they don't. So anyway, I don't know where this video even went, but hopefully you enjoyed. I just kind of rambled on. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hope it wasn't too bad, and I'll see you guys in the next one.